Hello. Good afternoon. Am I working? Hello. Oh, okay. Hello, good afternoon. Okay. Thank you all for coming this afternoon. I know there's nothing you would rather do on a Thursday than spend it with us. So thank you so much for coming. I did want to just start by just a few reminders. We do have, this is a publicly noticed meeting. We have a combination of several important groups here with us tonight. We have a couple members of our Board of County Commissioners. We have our Planning Commission, and we have our steering committee for the comp plan. So we're excited to have all of you here to work together this afternoon. I would ask that we all do our best to try to be as respectful and open-minded as possible. I'm sure there will be a lot of different opinions. I know we all get excited about land use, and sometimes people are very emotional, and it's because that you care so much about your community, and so we certainly respect that, but we just want to remind everyone that there's no decisions being made today. Nothing final is coming out of the work we're doing today, but it is really important work. And so it's sort of a roll up our sleeves, get our hands dirty work. This is the heart of the comp plan project. And so I just wanted to let you know all of that, right? We don't expect to finalize it today, but this is a really important step for us to get started talking about what the future of Elbert County looks like. I'm going to turn it over to our consultants. They're going to give you a little bit of an overview, what is the future land use map, all of that, and then we're going to break out into groups. You do have assigned groups, and so you'll find your name tag, and you will be at that station. So we'll play nice with others, and we're going to share a lot of ideas today. Okay, I'll hand it over to Blake.
Awesome. Thank you, Jennifer. So like Jennifer said, nothing is being decided today, and this is not our last time talking about land use. So we will have another working session with you all for the next steering committee meeting, so keep that in mind. As we get through today, this is essentially our first crack at the future land use map, and for a county, it's a big bite to take, but we're excited to get into it. We haven't. We can get into the tentative date at the end of this presentation. We'll get there. Yes, thank you. We are going to do a quick roll call for those of you who are on the steering committee, so I will pass around this mic. Feel free to just state your name and pass it to the next steering committee member.
Press White. Dallas Schroeder.
John Gresham.
Jim Marshall.
Ken Madsen.
Lee Benjamin. Dan McCallum. Joe Pepper.
Andrea Richardson.
Steve Belserovich.
Shelley Manning.
Larry Gable.
Tyler Dreisbach.
Kim Wills. Janine Foster. Nicole Hunt.
Diana Edstrom, Planning Commissioner.
You didn't want planning, did you? Dee Dee shot Grace planning.
Mike Buck.
Awesome. Thank you all. I think we're good. All right, so a quick agenda for tonight's meeting. We are going to go through a quick introduction on future land use, and then we will go into our future land use breakout session. We will have 5 tables. You will find your name card at the table, and we can get started with our land use working session from there. After that 30-minute drafting session, each table will have a chance to go up to the board and present their ideas in front of everyone. So each presentation will take about 5 minutes each. So think really high-level ideas, thoughts that you all had. Like I said, this is just the first meeting. We're trying to get through a lot of information during this hour and a half, so we want to thank everyone in advance for being as efficient as possible. We do have a few members of the public with us today. Friendly reminder that the working session is solely for those name tags at the table. So if you are members of the public, feel free to just stay seated and follow along as discussions are being had. So why are future land uses important? So future land uses provide guidance for future development. This is not zoning. We are not making changes to zoning. Future land uses provide future guidance to zoning decisions as they are made in the future. So this land use map is essentially the community's vision put down on paper. And the vision and the strategic goals that we have throughout the comp plan will find themselves throughout the land use plan. And so with this land use map, in the final chapter of the document, we will have information to help guide sort of the why behind each of the land use categories and some strategies behind guiding that future growth. So the land use categories are meant to be vague or broad in nature, general in nature. As we get into this, you may think, well, what about this land use? What about that land use? Those ideas are great, and we would like you all to put those on paper. But with the land use categories that we have, and each of these are at the table for reference, we have spent a lot of time discussing these land use categories, and they cover the vast majority of all development that we see as appropriate in Elbert County, both from what we've heard from the community members, what we've heard from you all, and from our professional opinion with a county of this size and rural nature. We want to be steadfast on the number of land use categories that we have. As we get into the next slide, essentially the more complex the development patterns are, the more land use categories you have. And so as we start adding land use categories, the more complex the development patterns will be in the future. And from what we've heard from community members, we want development patterns to be simple. Folks have wanted a very clear distinction between residential uses and commercial uses. So the development process, go back. As future development projects are brought forward, these would need to be in alignment with the future land use map. So they essentially guide the zoning decisions. So as we make, or as we have conversations today, keep that in mind. This is not zoning. This is strictly land use and helps guide the zoning decisions in the future. If a rezoning is needed, the Planning Commission will use the future land use map as guidance to then provide a recommendation to the board. So the categories that we have today are rural preservation, rural residential, rural community residential, neighborhood residential, community mixed use, commercial, and industrial. As you see in the categories, each one of these include parks, open space, natural preservation, and public uses. So that is consistent throughout each one of these land use categories. So we decided to not have a distinct open space category and provide that within each of these land uses. We felt like that was the most appropriate thing to do. So as we get through these, I'm going to just briefly touch on the main or primary use within each land use category, and then we'll break out into our session. So for rural preservation, We are thinking more agricultural uses, more 35-plus acre parcel farms with a residential unit on that farm. And so that when you see single family on there, that relates to the homestead that is there. And then the next one is rural residential. Think a little step down to 10-acre lots. Typically, just as a reminder, land use typically does not attach density allowances. What we felt for this group and for Elbert County, it was appropriate to put some sort of lot size on there to help inform some decision-making and conversation today. And then rural community residential, this is your 2 to 10 acre lots, single-family residential. And then as we step to the next one, it is neighborhood residential. Think anything less than 2 acre lots with that single-family use. And then also some limited local commercial attached with that neighborhood residential. And then community mixed use. This one was an interesting one because we have a lot of, we have a handful of areas outside of this northwestern portion of Elbert County, including Simla, Matheson, right outside of Lyman. So these community mixed use areas provide some flexibility for growth. We've heard a lot from folks from Simla that, that growth is needed, and we certainly do not want this map to be a roadblock for any future growth that Simla, Matheson, and those communities would like to see. As we were in Simla, it was almost a very stark difference from what we've heard here at the Elbert County Fair. It was very much so pushing for some growth, a mix of uses, whether it's residential, commercial, and just opportunities for some more uses like that. And then getting into commercial, this one is pretty straightforward. We're thinking retail, small format office, specialty clinics, medical office, hospital, and also some public uses as well. And then industrial, we're thinking along the lines of manufacturing, warehousing, distribution, and also allowing retail. As you can see, once you get into these breakout sessions, industrial is almost completely tied to I-70 and the corridor along I-70. So I don't think we have any industrial uses west of that 70 corridor. All right, so quick sort of recap for the breakout session. We have 5 tables plus 1 project facilitator at each table. Each table will have some trace paper, some markers. Feel free to jot down notes on the trace paper. If there's something that you don't like, circle that. Provide that note right on the trace paper. They are stuck to the table, but as only half of the trace paper is stuck down, so if you'd like to lift the trace paper up to see what's underneath, feel free to go ahead and do that. At the end of the 30-minute working session, we will take the trace paper off of the tables, pin them up on the board, and then you will have your 5 to 6 minute presentation of those high-level notes, and then we'll do this again at the next meeting. So there is not a future land use map or an existing land use map in the county of Elbert County. So we are starting from scratch. We only have a zoning map, and like I said, zoning is very different from land use. Think land use, 30,000 feet. Zoning is allowances, your entitlements, what each landowner is entitled to build on that land. Future land uses guide the zoning decision in the future. Yes. So PUD is a zoning designation and not a land use designation. What we've seen with Elbert County is PUDs essentially is a case-by-case basis, and it makes it very difficult for planning staff, for planning commissioners, for county commissioners to identify a clear path of development and transitional uses from agricultural uses to higher density or retail uses or intensity. So PUDs, typically in the planning world, we try to stay away from PUDs when it comes to zoning because it is really difficult for folks to, elected folks to view the entire area as one instead of just PUDs popping up throughout the county. Categories. Yep. Yep.
Yes. That's
Exactly.
correct. So PUD is a zoning, just, we have a variety of zonings, right? A, AR, whatever. So PUD is a zoning, it does exist, it's not going away. And I would even say that this entire process is not trying to discourage or encourage PUDs. But our PUDs still have land uses, right? I'm sorry? Okay. So our PUDs do have land uses. Most of ours currently are residential. There are also industrial PUDs that exist. They're actually quite common. And so if our future land use map, again, in the future has a large industrial area around I-70, and a PUD comes in that is to allow for a particular industrial land uses, that would be in conformance. And so the future land use map is not trying to identify zoning, it is stepping back and looking at land use. And so I would just clarify that they're not contradictory, and we do certainly have, and it's common to have a PUD that has multiple land uses in it. It may not be entirely residential, and that can be accounted for as well. That's why we talk about secondary uses or right at a node, at an intersection that may have commercial and things like that. So I don't think that we're saying different things. It's just terminology. And future land use maps simply would never have a PUD on them because they're customized. And if you said PUD, that could be anything. So.
And you're mentioning 40 acres, 40-acre lots? Okay. Yeah, I think the goal that we want to get at during today's working session is to identify areas that all of the groups agree on, all of the tables agree on. And if we can get, say, everything outside of the northwest area that is identified as that rural preservation, if we can all agree on that, then I think that's a win. I would like everyone to start to identify areas that they agree with and also areas that they don't agree with. Because then we can come back and say, okay, obviously that northwest area is a focus. We can blow that up a little bit further. And the next meeting, we focus strictly on that instead of the entire county. We have an elephant that we're trying to eat right now, and the only way to do that is just one bite at a time, and getting through this process. Nope. So no set percentage. I would say that if you feel like that 40-acre designation or that category, so which would be the rural preservation, identify areas where you think that would be appropriate, and so start circling where everyone's going to have a marker, and each person will have an opportunity to put their ideas on paper, and then we're going to run through them, because what we're showing right here is just a map, and it's just to get us started. So nothing final. Very, very draft.
Yeah.
Very, very drafty. Okay,
Tables?
tables.
Table 1, so come to your table and you can start, again, it's a draft, we know it's going to change. We had to start somewhere. If we gave you a blank map, that would take even longer. Table 1 is Diana, Jim, Steve, and Ken at this table.
And table 4 is Nicole, Chris, Larry, and Dee Dee. This table is Press, Lee, Danny, Robert, and Buck. I'm taking table 1. Okay. And then I think our last table is over here. Yep. We're the last ones. Yep. And table 5 is Joe, Kim, Tyler, Dan. Table 5, are you Dan? I'm Blake. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Okay. Oh, test, 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 test. We have a 5-minute warning. 5 minutes left. 5 minutes left before we present. Testing, testing, testing. All right, pencils down, pencils down. Time is up. We are going to start our presentations. Do we have volunteers to go first? Mike, you want to go first? All right, let's go, Mike. All right, attention everybody, attention please. Attention please. Everybody, I'm going to get louder and louder as everyone continues to talk. We need to start presentations right now. All right, if everyone can just take a seat and we will get started here in a few seconds.
Chime in. Well, what you guys can do is just kind of say, hey, I agree with what Mike's saying. Yeah. I don't. I think we should do this. We'll support you. We're like the seven dwarfs right behind you. Okay, you guys ready? Okay, so this group consisted of myself, Mike Buck, Press White, and Lee Benjamin. We were missing a couple of people from our group, but what we did was we looked at this map, and my first thought was, has the group, as a steering committee, have you defined the word rural? That would be something I would look for, because we have a lot of categories that have the word rural in it. Then when we were looking at the map, we saw that there was thousands of acres converted to high-density developments. Okay? Maybe they were attached to an existing PUD, and the map went out from that PUD and said, hey, we want more of this growth. We're looking for, this would be a great place for it. Let's take out, and we kind of circled some of these larger lots here and said, wait a minute, why are we adding and taking out large tracts of land for high-density development when 97% of our respondents, or 95 or whatever that number was, said we want to maintain a rural feel to the county. So I was a little kind of shocked when I saw this map, and my thought was, why are we not starting with a current map and then saying, where would we allow growth if we were to allow it? And what type of growth would we allow? This is a very broad map, if you will, but with these colors in the lower density, and I think Joe said it best, when a lot of these are 40-acre parcel areas, and we're saying we're going to go ahead and encourage or allow 2.5-acre lots. So a lot of downsizing when the majority of the citizens don't feel that way. So that was my thought process, and we just started circling stuff. So we just kind of went crazy with the marker. Well, what about all these big lots? What about all these big lots? Why are they going down to 2.5 acres, or why are they going to a higher density? So that's how we got started there. Our comments said neighborhood residential remains existing only, maybe a small, super small percentage addition of that type of development, add residential to Simla and the eastern towns, and start with current zoning map and add from there. Now, what I don't want to do, and I've seen this county do it before, is take a survey, get the people's ideas, get their thoughts, get their opinions, and then ignore that survey. Throw it on a shelf. We don't care. It's the silent minority. That was the exact phrase, quote, and I'm not going to quote the person that said it. That's a silent majority of people that don't want growth, or that don't want the growth. So we've done that historically, taken those surveys and not used them. So I would encourage us in this planning process, and it's our good chance and it's a great opportunity to listen to the citizens this time. That's all I have. Go ahead, Lee, if you have something you want to add.
Well, I just live out further east, and I just tightened up the boundary lines for industrial along Interstate 70. I thought I was pretty generous with 1 mile on each side of the interstate. So that's written in there, and the rest of it I agree.
Yeah, I don't have much to add, but, getting rid of all of that yellow, I don't know where this map came from, how it came about, but, I think we should have started at the bottom and worked up. It looks like we started at the top and trying to work down.
And that concludes our presentation, folks.
Awesome. Thank you all.
So the first thing we did is we asked, okay, what developments are already in the pipeline? Because unfortunately, we can't change those. So we had to identify what those were, and so we wanted to make sure that we knew exactly where we were in the county, so referring to Independence, Ponderosa Park, Spring Valley, Elora, and understanding what we have no longer control of, and working forward from there. So that's what we started with. We heard really that, Simla Matheson, they really want to have some growth. So, okay, let's respect their wishes and focus on that, creating, your neighborhood residential in there. So the other thing that is a huge concern to me, because I've worked on the development side, I'm a realtor, I work on the planning side, and so 2-acre developments with septic and wells are a huge issue, because now all of a sudden you're putting a bunch of wells and a bunch of septics very close together. So there's some unrealistic expectations that we can just put a bunch of 2-acre lots. So I would encourage to avoid that and really look more for your neighborhood residential, and then go to your 10-acre lots as a transition. So you go from your neighborhood where we have metro districts and things like that, and then shifting more to your 10 acres as a buffer around those, and then phasing out into the 35 acres. That, to us, made sense. Again, same thing down here where we have this industrial development coming in, putting your neighborhood commercial or your neighborhood residential around that, and then again, going to your 10-acre lots around that. I think we were in consensus that really we should try and avoid those 2-acre lots unless they're already platted and developed, and hopefully they have metro districts with them. Because again, eventually we're going to start running into a problem if we continue down that road. Along Elbert, of course, John Malone already owns a lot of that, and so that's already, but we said, okay, in the future, should something happen to where it transitions out. So we said, okay, well, allowing a corridor along the Elbert Highway where you can have that neighborhood, but then again, we don't want to see those 2-acre lots, but shift to the 10-acre and then the 45s as allowable. Not necessarily. And then switching, is it working? Okay. And then we talked about the commercial along 86. And of course, going more, again, into the deeper, that's not on the land use side, but we were all kind of in consensus of really creating corridors, again, to help maintain that agricultural, that rural feel, is to make sure that we have some corridors pushing that commercial back away so that it is not right up to the highway. So we still maintain some type of a rural feel. But again, instead of doing just solid commercial, doing more of the community mixed use, and not just limiting it to just the commercial.
And if I can add something, I know I keep bringing up the state overreach into our counties, and I do want to mention one, that because there's so many of you here that are part of the future conversations, there's a mandated state law that goes into effect in the next 3 months. Me being a part of the Elbert file, we have to vote on it by April. This is a crazy one. And the reason I want to bring it up is because if we don't plan for open space to protect our trees, we're going to lose them, because the new law basically says you cannot have a tree on a new build within 100 feet of the residence. It's not even an option. Every fire department has to sign off on it. It's coming. It's coming to the whole state. And it's because, supposedly, the insurance companies are leaving the state. So if we have high concentration, and you know how far neighborhoods can be, you know, in a high density, you can have 10, 15, even 20 feet in between the homes. That means that entire neighborhood can't have a single tree, or you can't get insurance for that property. That's what's coming, and it's coming like tomorrow, like the beginning first quarter of next year. So in that conversation, if we don't plan for open space, we have a lot of trees. We're going to lose them, and there's no choice. We have no option other than to adopt it. So if you didn't know that was coming, please consider it, because if we don't protect areas to have these landscape buffers or whatever it might be, we're not going to be able to insure our homes.
I don't really have too much to add. They did a great job, but I think the biggest thing that we really wanted to iterate was that we don't want to have that high density right next to like a 35-acre property. We want to have that transition, that buffer in between.
And if I can add two other things really quickly. This, again, goes a little deeper in the weeds than we are right now. But two things that I would really like everyone to consider. I think we need to start requiring developments to have wildlife corridors around all the developments. Again, we are pushing the wildlife to a specific area. They're losing their routes and everything, and I think that should be something that should be considered. The other thing that I'm drawing a blank on, but just developments. I think, and again, a little deeper in the weeds than we need to be right now, but I think developments need to be required to be transitional. So those highest density, and I know the developers hate me for this, but it should be the highest density in the center, and then transition out to the larger lots. So again, we have that tapering feel where, you know, I was on the planning commission when Gold Creek was approved, and I was appalled because the developer refused to shift and put the higher square footage lots up against Wild Point, and insisted on putting the smaller square footage lots because it was more beneficial for them. And so I think those are some things we need to consider moving forward, but deeper in the weeds than we need to be. Sorry.
No, you're good. Thank you. Table 5.
Do we need it? We need the mic, okay. Right. A lot of stuff that the groups already mentioned, we had discussion about and would probably generally agree. We focus first on the eastern part of the county. We believe that the people of Simla, Matheson, we would like to expand the corridor that's existing in Simla to all the way to Lyman. We also would like to expand the industrial opportunity along I-70 all the way to Agate. We think that's an untapped potential, and if we're going to limit industrial to this part of the county, we'd like to have at least one part of the county that says we're open for business. The county needs revenue, commercial revenue, and so we thought if we're going to try to balance all the interests of the county, we'd put that out there where the people want it. We had a big discussion about renewable energy projects. I think we came to the consensus they need to be along existing transmission lines, and so we don't have the problem that we now have with Excel. There are existing transmission lines. Tri-State's got some down here, so we'd encourage if you have renewable energy, make it with an existing transmission line. On EC East, we don't have, since it's already been approved, we don't have a problem expanding it west to the Kiowa Creek, but no further west than the Kiowa Creek, because that would be a natural buffer in a transition. Diane, do you want to talk a little bit about Elbert?
I think, yeah, I live outside of Elbert. I think Kim, there you are. You mentioned rightly that Malone owns a huge amount of the property around there and other places in the county. We're a small town. John lives there. I basically said, please don't touch Elbert. John, if you disagree with me, please. Okay. All right. No, I'd love to hear why. John has lived there for a long time, a lot longer than me. I like it the way it is. I don't think there's a lot of room to expand, but I really would like to hear what John says, so.
One more point on the eastern part, no more high density east of the Kiowa Road. No more high density about a mile east of the Kiowa Road. We're trying to stop the future.
Yeah, and the other things just to add on, and this is, I know another group already talked about, we agreed with Matheson Simla area that, having some mixed use for them there since they have an interest in growing their community. And as far as the neighborhood residential, we'd kind of like that restricted to what's already been approved. Going forward, we're hoping that, again, we'll follow what our community wants and have, residential areas that are more consistent with our community that currently. So,
Blake, if you have time, and if not this one, can you give a definition to open space? Because I think a lot of people think of it differently. Is the county buying property and creating open space, or are we just talking undeveloped land?
We can get into that later. We do have,
okay.
We want to get the other two groups sometime.
Okay. Who's next?
Yeah.
You gotta watch
All right, table two. Table two.
upside down. They're the ones who taped it. Okay. I don't know. Table two. We weren't sure what was going on either.
I don't know why. Why did I get Dallas? I could at least say, with respect to the survey, if I could, Commissioner, I appreciate you, but it's only one data point that we need to be looking at versus many. As 900 people and 700 people were from the northwest corner that weighed in, that's most certainly not the whole county and the entire voice of our county. So. Okay. Okay, that's just the point that I was trying to make to other people that are listening and are out there. you know, that we have voices from other parts of the county too that didn't weigh in. And so it shouldn't be the overruling guidance of this body. But, okay, so we had lots of fun out here. We wanted to put lots more industrial. Why did you guys make me talk? So lots of industrial and extended up the I-70 corridor. We see a lot of opportunity in that way. Same with down here. We do know that there is room for growth. Simla and Matheson, we did talk about that. That the community is kind of requesting industrial and commercial, so we did add that here. Did like to just keep this simple and like it is, push a little bit of that rural preservation in, add some more commercial here down by Kiowa and, you know, east of Kiowa on 86 there seems to be some opportunity there as well. And that's kind of what we wanted to focus on, is that we want to emphasize property rights and people to be able to do what they want with their property. And this was more of an opportunity here. So even cutting out some of this, I realize there's development. As a realtor, I did the same thing. I'm looking at things going, I know Malone's property's here. I know there's developments here. I know that there's actually acreage here. But I think the point was to give the opportunity to people, to landowners, if they wanted to take it. And so that, and down here, I think we just wanted to narrow this corridor a little bit with the commercial or the mixed use. Because it's really just not realistic, and we know Malone's properties over here and things like this. What was this? What was this, Dallas? Very few large tracts left need to be identified to be in the neighborhood residential. What could you want to explain that actually?
So when you look at the plat map of the northwest side, there's very few large tracts of land that are still available that could be in what we would call the PUD now, or the neighborhood residential, what we have. And so I think those need to be identified and reserved for that option for that landowner if that's the decision they want to make, instead of just saying, no, you can't. But there's very few here, and if we're going to continue to have a diversity of housing that is going to be beneficial to the economy of the county, we need to identify those tracts and make sure that they're allowed to use that property as they'd like to.
Thank you all. All right. All right, table 4? Table 4.
Oh, shoot. Oh, I see. There we go. That's hilarious. I thought this was a pin, and then I was like, shoot, we lost the pin. Those are nice. All right. Thank you. So our group spent a lot of time talking about the western edge of our county. As we look to the east, we liked the idea. We heard the feedback that there are cities out there that want to have more growth. We like the idea of adding the mixed options. But we did have a lot of problems with how the western side of our county was represented. And I would like to reference what Commissioner Buck referenced, was that our survey, which had almost 1,000 people responding, which Kimley Horn said is one of the largest turnouts that they've ever done when they've done surveys, that 95% of them wanted to see our county continue to be rural. They also had 75%, which again is a super majority, that said they would like to see no new residential at this time. When we're talking about a 20-year map and we're looking to the western portion of our county, almost all of the development has turned into very high density development. Not just the certain areas that are already going to be developed or are already developed themselves. We're talking about areas that have 40, 50, 60 acres that are now going to have a vision, right? A vision that is supposed to come from the people of the county, which we know that their vision is we would like this county to stay rural. The vision here is actually not consistent with that at all. The vision here is 2-acre lots or even less as a majority of the western portion. So what we did is we said, looking at this western portion, of course this is the blow up, but if you look at the entire western portion, we would like to turn all of those yellow locations into the green residential, rural residential, which was 10 acres. So we would like to see the vision reflect what the people of the county said that they wanted, which was a rural county. So 10 acres here, wherever there is orange, if there's already an existing community there that's high density, fine, you keep that, but don't let it sprawl out into the community that's surrounding it. Turn these orange areas that are not already existing high density developments into green rural residential as well, which is 10 acres. This would be a vision that is consistent with what the survey respondents said in our survey with Kimley Horn. We also took umbrage with the idea of calling high density development or high density residential neighborhoods. We actually think we ought to call it what it is. To me, that's softening what these communities really are, which is high density. This is an entry point to our community. It's what sets our community apart as people are coming in from the northern area, Aurora, from the west, from Douglas County. We're going to turn our entire western side into an extension of Parker unless we adopt a vision that's consistent with what the people of this county want, which is larger rural residential lots. That is the big area, the big aspect for us. As we looked to the city, we liked the idea, if we're going to do future high density developments, we like the idea of keeping them closer to the city. I can tell you that these areas, these orange areas, it takes about 15 minutes or more, 30 minutes just to get into Elizabeth. It doesn't make sense to put a bunch of high density development in the middle of nowhere. And you cross over this county line into Douglas County, well, the way that they're set up, all of their estates over here are larger estates. They're not high density. So you really do have a high density development in the middle of the country, which doesn't make sense. If we're going to do high density, we need to put it closer to the cities, whether that's Elizabeth or Kiowa or Simla or anywhere else. We need to focus them in closer to the cities. I think that's the high points. Do you have anything else to add, Dee? Or?
Yeah, I would just suggest that we do want Simla to get their requirements met as well. So if they have areas that they would like to expand and have more density, then that's something that they should be allowed to have happen. But I do think that we need to be a rural county. That's what everybody says. That's what, I don't hear anybody telling us that we want to be a high density county. So I think we should, just like Ms. Wells said, we need to do a lot better with our transitioning, that's for sure. That's the biggest thing, I think, for me.
Look at that. 30 seconds left. How does everyone feel about how today went? Thumbs up, thumbs down? Mike? Yeah. Yep. 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 Yeah. Yeah, and next test. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. So this is essentially the first crack at it. We want to get more site specific with you all for this 30-minute exercise to inform us exactly how this map starts to transition and mold into what the final will look like months from now. So the next steps is we will take the 5 maps that you all created tonight and overlay those with what we have and start to make those revisions over the next most likely 2, 3, 4 weeks. And as we prep for the next meeting, we want to get this from a 100,000 foot level to a 50,000 foot level to a 30,000 foot level, and then work our way into a more detailed plan. And that, what we feel is, it gives you all the power to start making decisions, identifying those areas that you like, those areas that you don't like, and changing that from these land use categories where we have workshopped these internally. And now that we're putting them on paper, we can start to see how this whole map starts to play out. And we're looking forward to getting back to the drawing table, revising this, and then our next meeting, I think we need to discuss maybe some, if today worked well, if we just run this back again, or if we, break this out into smaller subsections, more detail that has all of our revisions on paper. I think that's something that we need to discuss internally on what would work best for you all. But I feel like our table had some great discussions on identifying what we liked, what we don't like, and I think it at least informs us, the Kimley Horn team, to make those informed revisions, so we're not just taking 900, 1,000 responses and trying to get a final product right off the bat, because that we understand is impossible, because we have a lot of opinions in the room, and we want to make sure that everyone's voice is heard.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. It will be beyond the holidays. Okay. Yeah.
And Blake, if I could just make a quick comment on that overreach from the state. If you update more than 25% of your siting, you have to cut down all the trees within 100 feet of your house. The only way, and it's because everyone in this room, I want to say, planning and commission, the only way to cycle that is if we become a home rule county. I wish someone would pick that up, look at it, get us into a home rule status so the state can no longer come in and say, cut down the farms and destroy your environment.
I do want to keep. Yeah. I do want to keep.
The legislature can still say, even though it's home rule, it can say it's an issue statewide. There's this misperception, and it's true, that your home rule, you can do anything. There are still limits of what you can do with your home rule.
And I want to keep us focused on land use. I know it's a lot just with land use. And so keeping the discussion purely for land use. I think and Steve, you had asked if the next meeting would be before the holidays, or would we finish the land use plan before the holidays? Okay. The next meeting, I think tentatively we have set for December 11th, but that's really quick, and we wanted to gauge with you all on if that completely doesn't work, if that's too quick, we can be flexible on our end.
We haven't put a lot of thought into the next meeting yet. We really wanted to see how tonight went, or this afternoon.
I think we would need to decide.
Yeah, we need to talk through all of that. I will say that I think I heard more things that you all agreed on than things that you didn't agree on, actually, right? There was a lot of agreement about industrial, about the I-70 corridor, about the Simla-Matheson area. I even think there was quite a bit of agreement for the western portion of the county, and so I think that was actually really positive. And so, yeah, that's great. You didn't know. We definitely had 5 distinct opinions and views, but I do think that there was more in common than differences, which is positive.
Starting from scratch too. It's a big task to undertake, and I just want to say thank you all for all of your time. I know we have a few more meetings with you all, but just getting out every hour and a half that we have with you all has been extremely helpful for our team. And I think this is going to start to mold into what everyone laughed at me when I said this at the beginning of the meeting, that we would agree on some things. I think at the end of this process, I think folks will look at the map and feel really good about it and how we move forward. So we're excited to get to work, and we will update you all on the next meeting. Show of hands, does December 11th work? Yes or no? Yes, it works? Okay. Looks like we do have a majority. We will follow up very shortly. Try to follow up maybe early next week on a confirmation date with you all, so you all can plan around your holiday plans and all of that. But yeah, I do just want to say sincerely thank you all for your time. And if we don't speak before Thanksgiving, happy Thanksgiving, y'all. Thank you.